he's in a better mood, he might buy me one of them fucking prawn sandwiches that everyone around us was eating. Nah, not a fucking hope, you know. Then something happened, a miracle. Williams was rushing about in his pocket. I seen his hands fiddling and I started to panic. I see a bulge in his pockets, a fucking big bulge. It was a bit oddly shaped, but beggars can't be choosers. I looked around where we were sat. There was 24-year-olds with no minis... Bastard. 24-year-olds with miniskirts on. Kant and I once sat next to him. It wasn't me. I had no makeup on and looked rough as anything. The bulge got bigger. And then all of a sudden he got it out. It was a big un. A fucking very big un. It was shining gold. It was my lucky day. A fucking cruncher. Oosh. Followed by a toffee crisp and then a fucking Twix. But it was a cruncher. That's the one I wanted. Here, I've treated you, he said. A smile from ear to ear. That was the moment I knew he was different. Were they on offer by any chance? Yeah, you wouldn't have got one otherwise, he replied. Buy one, get one free. Packets of 4. 8 for £2, mate, he said. I was touched. The match ended 3-2. I was glad, really. I wouldn't have felt awful if he'd took me and United got beaten. If you believe that, reader, you believe fucking anything. I was gutted. The smirk on his face was unbearable. "Do you enjoy it, Shazza?" he asked. "Yeah, great, thanks. I had a good time," I said, muttering. What a stingy fucking bastard. That was under my breath. I was dying of thirst. Mind you, he said he'd made tea, so I guess he wouldn't have to wait too long for a drink. Got back to the car after a long walk from the stadium. On reaching the car, he looked tired. "Knackered me, mate," he said. He dropped me off and said goodnight. Charming, I thought. No brew, no pie, no programme, no pasta, but the crunchy made it up, I suppose. As the saying goes, it's the thought that counts. Not expecting to hear from him again, I reflected on the fact that I'd watched a Champions League match for nothing, as surprisingly he hadn't taken the money from me for the ticket. But then on Saturday, I received a text. It was vague, much like him. It said, "Shaz, I'm in deep shit," and that's when it all happened. Chapter 3. The Rooftop Garden. I replied to the text nervously, pressing the keys to ask him, "What sort of shit? Is it just shit, or is it heavy shit?" I pressed and sent, waiting for the answer. I'd learned that week that Williams either replied to a text within seconds or days, depending on his mood. This time the reply came within seconds. Deep shit, mate. Then another followed quickly. It read, "You better come round, mate." Thinking he was going to reveal himself as a serial killer or an arsonist or even worse, a fucking Tory MP, I drove there wondering what on earth compelled me to go. It wasn't his charm, that was fucking non-existent. It wasn't the warmth in his living room, because he was too tight to put the fucking fire on. Nevertheless, I parked up outside his house and knocked on the door. "You better come in. I'm going to check you for wires," he said. Thinking he was getting a bit frisky, I fucking hesitated about going inside. "I couldn't phone you last night because Salford cop shot confiscated my phone," he told me. I was caught between feeling shocked at his involvement with the police and a sense of being happy that there was a genuine reason for not getting in touch, however dodgy the reason was. "What for?" I asked. "Oh, you'll never believe me, mate. You've got me down as some sort of fucking Billy Big Time cannabis deal." He said, "Ah." He seemed deeply insulted at the accusations. "Do you know what I'm worried about, mate?" he said. I went, "What, mate?" His 70-year-old mum. "Fuck the shame of it," he said. I can just imagine it. All my mum's mates running around waving the fucking Salford City Reporter around her saying, "Is that your signing on before the bench?" That's what's bothering me, mate, nothing else. I asked how they could accuse me of such a thing, asking how they could make such a mistake. Oh, it ain't a mistake, mate. I have 30 fucking cuttings in the loft, all growing nicely as well. I asked him what sort of plants were up there, thinking he might have some fucking agricultural course at school. I was perhaps cultivating some crocus bulbs in the dark to sell on the market. I was an innocent girl, being brought up in Seedley, a posh part of our own city. In hindsight, my naivety must have appalled him. Before he answered it suddenly dawned on me. He was growing weed in the loft, then something else dawned on me. I'd not slept 10 feet away from his plants when I stayed that night. Fucking bastard. "So what happened last night when they came?" I asked. "Well, let me tell you, Shazza, it's quite funny really, mate," he said. And that was when he started to recount the events of the previous night. "Well, I was sat watching Corrie when the door went. It was a man from Eon, and he stood there with 2 coppers. I had a funny suspicion what it was about. At this point I just thought the best plan was to say ta-ra and get a Mackey's. Stress always made me want to eat. He carried on telling me what had happened. So I asked him what they wanted. He said the Eon man said he was here to investigate the sudden fucking upsurge in my lekker and why I'd only used 2 weeks of lekker in 3 years. He then asked to see me meter. I knew there and then they had me fucking banged to rights. Well, Shazza, the next thing, they traced a wire back to my bedroom where the plants were growing contently. Totally ignored the do not disturb sign, mate. No fucking respect. I wondered why I'd not noticed it when I said the week before, but realised that 28 bodies and the distorted vision had something to do with it. They frog marched me into the street. The fucking curtains were twitching all over, mate. Bet no fucker in the street watched the end of Cora, that's for sure. Bet they all had to watch it on catch up, the nosy bastards. What happened after that, I asked, fearing the worst. Well, they emptied the loft. My fucking pension fund, gone. Gone. In the back of 4 vans. 4 fucking hours it took him. Cleaned me right out, he said. As though it was the fucking innocent victim of an index-linked pension fund. I told myself to leave the house and never come back. But I ignored the voice in my head. Quite frankly, I wanted to know what happened next, so I stayed. Then he continued. They woke me up at 7:30 to interview me. I looked at 2 coppers who came and I thought, I'll fucking some fun with these 2. They introduced themselves. The WPC stated first by asking me stupid questions, though she thought I was going to slip up. I looked at her and just thought, I've got a fucking daughter older than you, he said to me. Everything she asked, I turned the question back to her. I'll tell you what was said. How much you spend on beer, Mr. Williams? How much do you spend, love? Do you like nice holidays? Don't we all, love? How much you spend on clothes, Mr. Williams? How much do you spend, love? I bet you like nice clothes. Williams told me it became like a game of table tennis and there was only going to be one winner. He carried on with the tale. That's when the drug sergeant came in. As soon as he started, I thought, I'll give him a run for his fucking money. So every question he asked, I replied, no comment. At this point in his story, I realised he was accustomed to this sort of thing. The voice on my shoulder told me to go. It was more interested listening to him than watching the fucking EastEnders omnibus. He asked who did the electric because it was a professional job. Then he asked did I admit to growing plants and how did I know what to do. I told him, the internet. He asked me if the 2 larger plants that I'd taken were the mother plants. I asked him how he knew about that and then he replied, the internet. We all laughed, although there was a fucking bit of mutual respect in that one. They bailed me, and that's when I had to do the walk of shame, mate. Never having heard of the walk of shame, I asked him what it was. Dreading the answer, I sat down, having the feeling it was going to be a fucking long day. I remembered that when I first seen him, and I thought he was a gay photographer, how fucking wrong could I be? I recalled how at the reunion, he just observed his surroundings and not really mixed very much. In hindsight, I realised he must have been fucking wary of the GMP watching him. The bastards took my phone, my laces, my belt. I had to walk all the way home with a little brown property bag. I thought, right, swat, I can tell you. Why did they take the laces off you? I asked naively. In case I thought I'd do anything fucking stupid, mate, he answered. When he said that, I thought if I stayed any longer, I was the one who was fucking stupid. The good conscience on my shoulder told me to wish him all the best and just fuck off out of there, while the bad conscience got me to stay and listen to more. Against my fucking better judgment, I decided to stay. I was a bit shocked. I don't know why. I'd always thought if I was faced with a moral decision, that I would always take the right option. But something had told me that he was a decent sort. Life had taught me not to make hasty judgments of people. Life had also taught me that things were not black and white, but there were shades of grey in between. He'd made me laugh, tell me what had happened, but I sensed that he was more worried about telling his mum. I'd only known him a few weeks, but my instincts were not to turn my back on him. What were a few plants? And he'd already borrowed the electric. I left and said if I ever needed anything, just to ask. I was quite touched that he'd felt he could trust me and tell me what had happened. My offer of help was taken up a week later. Well, not help exactly, but I'll tell you what happened next. Chapter 4. Buried Treasure. A week had passed and I had not heard from him. I imagined him sat in his loft, lamenting his fucking lost pension fund. I wondered if he'd done something stupid, but then decided he was not the sort. I wondered how he'd gone, and if he was okay. But at the end of the following week, I decided it would be best if I didn't hear from him at all. Then on the Friday evening, about 10 o'clock, my phone notified me with a text. I read the message and it said, Shazza, get us some ciggies, mate, and drop them off. I looked for a please at the end of the text, but couldn't see one. I tutted but laughed inside and just set off to get the cigs. When I arrived, he opened the door and said, "You alright, mate?" "Yeah, there's your ciggies, Williams. £3.20, please," I said. I'd like to say he said thanks for getting him, and here's the money, but he didn't. "Do you want to come in for a vodka?" "Oh, go on then." It's when I stepped inside that noticed a teenage boy sat on the settee drawing. He told me that it was his son, and that it was then I seen another side to this man that had already shocked and surprised me. I was to find that night he was as good at nurturing his children as was his cuttings. He didn't even nurture the vodka though. He didn't stay in the bottle long enough. He gave me a drink and I noticed that the measure had a marked improvement in the one he'd given me 2 weeks before. He must be fucking mellowing, I thought. As time wore on, I noticed he was getting a little bit drunk. He became a little bit loose-tongued, and it was then that he started to tell us about his hidden treasure. "Will, if anything ever happens to me, there's 50 grand hid in a black bag, buried near your nana's shed, but just don't tell your nana." I noted his son's eyes light up, so did mine. The bad conscience on my shoulder told me to try and find out where William's mum lived. He continued to tell his son the details. "It's 3 paces from the fishing gnome and 4 paces away from the bird bath." Will asked him what to do with it if anything happened. "Well, son," he said, "there's 50 grand each for you and Amanda, 10 each for Sam and Nicole." I could see Will calculating it to see if it added up, as Williams was slightly worse for wear at this point, but it all added up okay. I was wondering if they would notice a couple of grand missing. I'd seen a nice bag in Selfridges that I liked. I could do with some fucking new knickers and all. I could get 10 pair for £5 on Berry Market. Will looked as though he wasn't bothered, but Williams knew it was making his son curious, and he carried on telling him about the hidden stash. Will was listening intently with a mixture of innocent interest and an admiration for his father that was as bright as the twinkle in his eyes when he heard about the money. I realised quite quickly that the story was probably a big fib, but I wasn't entirely convinced. I made a mental note to go and check out the sheds in his mum's road as soon as I got out of her address. I'd become accustomed to William's tall stories, but humoured him, and when I saw his son angry on his every word, I realised why he told him. It was to make people happy by making them laugh. Then Williams asked if I knew he was related to Robbie Williams from Take That. Oh God, I thought, just fucking humour him. "No, I didn't," I replied. It was then I was to hear the words I would hear at least twice a week, every week after that. He lifted his toppers and said, "Look at the chest. This chest is chiselled from Salford's finest marble." I was a little embarrassed because his son was there, but I thought it'd be rude not to. After all, he'd asked me to look, and my dad had always told me to do as I was told. I looked, expecting it to be like a typical 48-year-old man's chest. He wasn't wrong. He was, in fact, finely chiselled. I didn't know whether it was like from lifting slates that had done it or illegal steroids, but I wasn't complaining. My knickers were soaking. I looked at Will and pretended to be unimpressed. Probably aware of the cost, Williams didn't put the fire on that night, even though winter was getting near, but it didn't need to because a warmth between father and son filled that room. And as I left, I began to realise that my newly found friend was worth his weight in his finely chiselled marble. Chapter 5. A hidden talent. Well, sometimes things happen that are best left unsaid. For the men reading this tale, it would be considered unimportant. For the women, it's more so. But I'll choose to skim the details and condense 3 weeks into just a few paragraphs. It's safe to say that some days I thought I knew my new mate Williams inside out. I asked him questions as I was curious to know what made him tick. He was unlike anyone I'd met before, and I was curious to know what was inside his head. I knew there was a lot inside it was just fucking jumbled up. Some days I didn't know him at all. I thought he had me sussed out fairly quickly. I knew that he knew he could more or less be certain with me, and what he seen was what he got. He could trust me with his life. But all I can say is now is, as I type this story, he knows he can. One night, and he didn't cut it to the core. Some things are best left out of print, like Giggs's affair, the detail of Gareth Thomas's sex life, and the goings on in the House of Commons, and so all the details as to his reasons why our friendship was temporarily 7.